What is Magi and how can it help you in your ministry? Find out in a minute because it's time.
You're listening to the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast, part of the TCD Podcast Network.
Hey heroes, my name is Tom Pounder and this is the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast. This is the podcast where I bring on ministry leaders and we talk about how you can do ministry more effectively in this very digital and online world. And today I'm really excited to have Dustin Stout on the program. Dustin is a guy I've been following for a really long time. He's just been on social media, mainly I see him through Twitter because that's how I connect with all my Twitter friends. But he's been a big influence on me because he's always the one who's using technology and using it for good stuff. And he just came out with a program called Magi, and it's an AI tool that is just so fascinating because, as you know, the world of AI is changing all the time. It's going at a very rapid pace, and we talk about that a little bit in the interview. But Dustin put together this program called Magi that I think your church and your ministry is really going to be able to use in a big way. And I don't want to give away all of it right now, but it really combines text and it combines images, and it's going to save your church and ministry a lot of time. So without any further ado, let's just get into the interview right now with Dustin as we talk about Magi and how it can help you and your church today. All right, with me right now is Dustin Stout. Dustin, how are you?
I'm great, Tom. It's a beautiful day in Southern California. It's not going to be too hot today, and by too hot, that means it's not going to be in the hundreds. So that's always a good thing.
That is a good thing. Now, where in Southern California do you live?
I'm in Bakersfield. It's about 2 hours north of LA.
Okay, cool. Now, have you lived out there your whole life or just some of your life?
No, actually, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, a very small town, and graduated high school, moved out to Hollywood to pursue acting. And long story short, met my wife, started having kids. My wife was born and raised out here in Bakersfield. And when we were getting ready to have child number 3, we thought, oh, it might be nice to have grandparents around to babysit every now and then.
Yeah.
Also, don't know if you've heard this about LA, but real estate is pretty expensive. And here in Bakersfield, it is not quite as bad. So,
oh, that's nice.
It was a smart move for us at the time.
Yeah, I live in Washington D.C., so real estate's pretty expensive out here as well, but not as bad as California. Where in Pennsylvania? You said Western Pennsylvania, by Pittsburgh?
So about an hour and a half northwest of Pittsburgh, right on the Ohio border, a little town called Sharon.
Oh, I know that. I went to school up in Erie, Pennsylvania College, Mercyhurst College for 1 year. And
I have friends who went there.
Yeah, the lake was frozen from like October to May, and I'm like, this is not the place for me. So, well, Dustin, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. I've known you for a while via Twitter because I follow you on Twitter, and you've got a ton of great insights. But some of the people who are listening may not know who you are. So give everyone like a kind of a brief bio of how you got started in this field and what you're doing now.
Wow. So it's quite a journey. I think God is, he likes to keep us guessing sometimes, I think, with the plans that we have. So like I said, I graduated high school, went out to LA to pursue acting. In the process of pursuing acting, I realized that in Hollywood, celebrities get to act and actors get to wait tables. And I didn't particularly like waiting tables. So what I ended up doing was, taking a job at a local church. I was volunteering for several years as a youth leader in the middle school ministry. Excuse that. And as a youth leader, I love working with kids and teenagers, and like walking in that journey with them. One of my mentors decided that we'd like to ask you to help us with this church plant that we're doing down the street. It's about 8 miles away. It's a satellite campus of the much larger church that we were part of. It was about 15,000 member church at the time. And so they were starting a satellite campus just south to reach a different part of the San Fernando Valley. And they needed some help. The youth pastor down there needed, somebody to kind of help share the load. And so he asked me to be, sort of like his second in command youth director After a handful of months, it caught me by surprise that he said he was leaving the ministry to go work on his doctorate degree in ministry. And he wanted me to take over the youth ministry entirely. And so God called me into being the youth director of both middle school and high school at a very small satellite campus. And I did that for several years. Now, because I had a hobby of graphic design, I kind of picked up in high school. I ended up doing a lot of design for the church, but also this was right around the time where social media was emerging and it was becoming like the cool thing for teenagers. This was like peak Facebook for high schoolers, just getting access to it. And it was the cool thing to be on. And I sat in a room with a guy named Michael Hyatt, who taught about this concept of how blogging and social media can help you reach an audience and build a platform. And so I thought this is a perfect way to reach our target audience, which is teenagers. And so I started learning social media, how to take advantage of the fact that it's where the kids are, it's where they interact, and it's where they build relationships. And so I took very quickly to it. I learned how to use social media. I learned how to make a blog. And being a graphic designer, like I wanted the blog to look good. So I ended up teaching myself web design.
Wow.
I wanted it to all look good. I wanted the ministry to have a cool looking website to attract all the kids. And I ended up developing these skills while I was maintaining this youth ministry. And by the time that I left the youth ministry, we had budget cuts, and they weren't able to, they couldn't afford to pay me the $1,000 a month that they were paying me at the time to run the entire ministry and all the graphics for the church. Yep. So I had to find another job, obviously. But at that time, because I had acquired these skills, I had actually started consulting on the side, taking some side work, helping businesses implement social media strategy for their company and building websites for businesses. And so, long story short, I got a full-time job as a graphic designer somewhere. And after about 2 years there, I was able to leave that job and just go full-time consulting because I had built up enough clients, and owned an agency for almost 13 or 14 years now. Just been consulting in the way of digital marketing, social media, SEO, web design, and had a full service agency. And very quickly, I realized that God has built me to be a bit of a perfectionist in that, like, I really love to dig into details. And so client work was great because I'm an extrovert and I love people and I love helping people, but I couldn't scale it. And so I realized very quickly, like, I am not great for like one-on-one consulting or projects where it requires me to be there all the time because I can't scale this business. So I need to get into digital products. And created my first digital product, and that was the end of that. I wanted nothing more than just to create digital products that I don't have to be there to help people implement. They could just buy them, and it improves their lives or their business or their ministry. And I get to continue to be a perfectionist, really perfecting that product, and so it led me to where I am today.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I love hearing that. And again, when I first met you on Twitter, seeing you on Twitter, I had no idea about that you had any kind of ministry or faith-based background. And so it's kind of interesting to see. I will say this, I grew up being a youth minister. I spent 26 years as a youth minister. And
God bless you.
I'm out of it now. I'm only on the online ministry right now. But it's funny, I've heard the story with so many youth ministers is that when the church needed help with graphic design or web stuff or video stuff, they were the ones that they were called upon. And it was something about being involved with youth that really enabled them to be, because I guess you're into the trendy stuff and what the kids are into. What was it about graphic design that really kind of caught your eye initially that you thought, hey, I really want to do this?
It's interesting because I've always been kind of an artist. For a brief period when I was a kid, I thought, I'll be a comic book artist because I love comic books, I love superheroes, I love drawing. And so, I've always had that sort of artistic side. And it was, I think, around my 11th and 12th year grade in high school, I had an art teacher who was really cool. His name was Mr. Enoch. And Mr. Enoch would let me come to his office or to his classroom on my study halls where I had nothing else to do. And he would let me sit in his office and play on his computer. And he happened to have Photoshop installed on his computer. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And, I kind of love technology. So I learned how to use Photoshop in 11th to 12th grade just for fun, and just always kind of held on to that. And eventually, when I actually needed to use it in a professional capacity, I knew what I was doing. Yeah. So I've always had that artistic eye, and God kind of gave me that artisan sort of way of looking at the world. And so picked up the technology to lead me in that direction. And, it just kind of evolved, I guess.
All right. So you said that you enjoyed making products and creating things. What was the first product that you created?
So the first digital product that I made was actually a collaboration with some friends that I'd found on the internet, on Google Plus of all places. And
Yes.
we all had a web design background. I was more of a designer. They were more developers. And we all had this issue with social sharing plugins at the time on blogs. Like, social sharing plugins were the worst, and they took a long time to load. They didn't do anything really. They just copied a link and you'd have to do everything else. So we had some ideas about how we could make that better. And we came up with this idea for a WordPress plugin. It was a social sharing plugin, and that was our first digital product. It took us about 9 months to get it to market and get it in the hands of beta testers. But because we all had a fairly lively presence on Google Plus at the time, and my blog was becoming fairly popular, the product took off really well. It filled a definite need in the marketplace. It was doing things that no other social sharing plugin did at the time, and became very, very successful. And once I had that first taste of like, oh, this is so cool to see like thousands of people benefiting from something that I helped create, that was the bug. That was made the bug stick.
Now that's awesome. I love the social sharing plugins for WordPress. I'm a big WordPress guy. Do you still use WordPress?
Yeah, for all of my marketing sites. Yep.
That's awesome. Is the plugin still available?
I believe so. Yeah, I left that company in 2020 due to an unfortunate toxic relationship that came out of that partnership. But yeah, I think the plugin is still available.
That's cool. Well, I'm not going to download it now. So, anyways, but hey, okay, all right. So let's switch to gears about something you've done recently, which again is centered around AI. It's called Magi, and I've seen people talking about it on Twitter, not just you, but other people talking about it, how much they rave about it. So, talk to us a little bit about Magi and how that kind of came about.
Well, I've been working with AI tools for years now. There have been a bunch of AI copywriting tools out there for a long time, and they were great. But the problem that I always found with these tools was that they kind of made you conform to their way of thinking about things. And what I mean by that is all of these tools were sort of orchestrated around this idea of templates. Like, they have a template for this copywriting formula. They have a template for that copywriting formula. Template for this, template that, and thousands of templates. Just subscribe to our expensive app and pick a template, and the AI will write things for you. Now, the challenge with that is, again, you're having to fit your ideas into somebody else's template, or the way that I like to phrase it is, I had to fit my creativity into somebody else's box, and that didn't always work out for me. On top of that, it was sort of this paradox of choice principle, right? The idea that when we are faced with a multitude of decisions or options, we tend to not want to make decisions because it costs us more brain power than we are willing to give. And so we end up with this, if you've ever logged into Netflix and found yourself scrolling for an hour and a half, just trying to find something to watch, and you're like, oh, well, it's time to go to bed now, and I didn't even find anything. So that was the experience that a lot of these tools had. They had thousands of templates. Which one was going to work? I'm not really sure. So now I have to figure out what are my go-to ones, and is it going to be the right one? And so AI never really took off. In a sense, it didn't hit the mass market. Marketers like me loved it because we could figure out the tools and we found the ones that worked for us. But it never really hit mainstream in a big way. When ChatGPT came around, it completely changed the game. because it removed the necessity for templates. It removed this barrier of having to go through somebody else's way of thinking about things. I could just tell the AI what I wanted, and it would give it to me. I could say a few normal human words, and the AI knew what I wanted, knew what I meant, and can generate things at my request. And so that was the big game changer that as soon as I played with it, like the minute it was available for me to play with in beta, I was like, this is going to change everything. And so I started using ChatGPT right away, prolifically for everything I could think of, just trying to learn it, the nuances of it, the limitations of it. And very quickly, I found that ChatGPT's interface was, one, not the most pleasant thing to use, two, lacking in some very key functionalities for someone like me who's creating a lot of different types of content and using them in various different places. And it didn't necessarily fit into my normal workflows because it was missing all these features, these things, the quality of life things that made life easier for content creators. So I was like, I'm already kind of learning how to build an application that utilizes AI. At the time, I had a product that I was trying to integrate AI into. And I was like, I'm just going to switch gears entirely. I'm going to pivot from this thing that I was thinking about building. I'm just going to build a better version of ChatGPT because it's missing all these things that I need, and I can build them on top of, because ChatGPT has an API where essentially any third-party app can use the AI into their application. And so that's exactly what I did. Magi was born because ChatGPT was great, but it was missing so many things. And I decided I'm going to make it better.
Okay, so then how did you make it better? What were the things that you wanted to improve upon?
Yeah, so right out of the gate, you'll find very quickly, as soon as you start having multiple conversations with ChatGPT, that sidebar where all of your chats live becomes kind of unwieldy. And if you want to find something that you did a week ago, 3 days ago, if you've got a lot of items in that list, you're sitting there scrolling and clicking. Is that it? No, that's not it. Click. Is that it? No, that's not it. I simply wanted a way to search for a chat, and ChatGPT didn't have that. So the first thing I built into Magi was a search and filter feature. So those of us who use WordPress, we're used to like searching for our posts in the back end, right? Very easy to do. So I built that functionality into Magi. So when you create a chat with Magi, you're using ChatGPT in a better looking interface, if I do say so myself. I guess that was the first feature: make the interface look better and more beautiful to use. But then, if I want to search for something, there's a search bar, there's a filter bar. You can search and instantly find a chat that you made yesterday, last week, or a month ago, or a year ago. So that was the first thing. And then on top of that, I'm a bit of an organization freak. So I want to be able to like organize and separate chats from one another to kind of keep things, in their proper place. And so at the time I was managing one business. I was also doing client work and generating stuff for clients. So I kind of wanted to separate. I wanted a way to silo off the content that I was creating so they don't intermingle, they don't get mixed up together. And so I built this ability to change between what I call brands, or essentially like different workspaces. So when you are active when you have a brand active, or you're in a specific workspace, the stuff that you create there is strictly for that workspace or brand. You switch brands and those ones disappear, and all you see is the ones that you created for that brand. So a simple top level organization technique. Now, beyond that, I'm also even more organized in how, I want to kind of put things into folders. I want my marketing stuff to be in the marketing folder, and my blog stuff to be in the blog folder. I want to create these folders. And so that's another thing that I built in relatively early on into Magi. And lastly, like the big major thing that I wanted to include in there was the ability to have images as well. So anybody who's creating content most likely needs images for those content as well, for that content. And so I wanted to integrate not just a chat feature, but also image generation, because AI image generation is a huge deal too. And it's been making leaps, big strides and leaps in technology and what it's capable of doing, to the point where at this point, it's hard to tell the difference sometimes between a real photograph and an AI generated photograph. And that could be problematic in different ways, but for us content creators who are using it for good, it's a big bonus. So I wanted to unify the different AI types of AI tools into one interface where you don't have to have this subscription and that subscription and this other subscription over here, and then change to this app over there. And I wanted it all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is really a big deal because as you're talking about things, and I think people who aren't playing around with AI very much right now, they may be thinking, what's the big deal about that? But the reality is the search feature is so key because I've been using Claude a lot, and I know that it just kind of layers upon itself. And you don't know how many times I've gone back and said, I thought I searched this, or I thought I asked for this, and I cannot find it anymore. The simple fact that you have this organized and you can create folders, you can create separate things, that's going to say, again, one of the things I love about AI is it saves me time. But this would save time too, because me sorting through the different things will be a huge time saver. And so I like how you organize it on that level. But then the last thing you just said about the images, I think that's really, really important because again, you have the chat, the AI that just gives you text and stuff like that, but you got the text and you got the image all in one central location. That's big time right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've been a content creator for years, doing marketing, doing website copy, and building documentation for products. And so it's essential to have like all of your content tools in one place and not have to switch context all the time. Really is a big time saver and a big like brain energy saver.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually see from a ministry perspective, and from a church perspective, one of the big deals about churches, and I'm sure you experienced this. Well, you did experience this based on what you already told me. But like, again, churches and ministries don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of staff to be able to do this. And with Magi, you're combining really two essential elements. You're providing some great text stuff, but then the image stuff, again, a lot of churches can't afford a graphic designer. And then you're enabling that to happen.
Or a full-time photographer.
Yes. Yeah. So how would someone use your image creation stuff? What would be a sample that someone could type in that you would produce?
For ministries in particular, just website imagery is a big thing. Like having good images on your website, or something to go with like an Instagram post or something. So you can type in something like, a group of teenagers sitting around a table studying their Bibles. I actually just generated one a few days ago with this exact thing. And with our new AI image engine that we're introducing next week, or maybe the week after, it's so real that you would think it was taken by a professional photographer. Now, we also have a current image integration called SDXL, which is pretty lifelike as well. And so, things that you might need just to accompany your messages, even, if you are doing a sermon on the Garden of Eden, have AI generate a beautiful visual to accompany your slide presentation. If you're putting it on the big screens behind you, just to make it more visually engaging. There's tons of applications for ministries, because ministries, they are multimedia in every sense of the word. So anywhere you can add multimedia help, I think is a good thing.
And again, I think we live in a digital world, and things are only going to get more and more digital. And again, these tools like Magi are designed to help us be more effective in it. And I will say, when AI first came out, I was really hesitant. I was like, I don't know if I really want to try this. But the more I just tried it and experiment, I was really blown away by the results I was getting. And it helps me as a minister. I do a lot of blog posting. I do a lot of devotionals. I will type in something random and it will give me a starting point that then I can, kind of go from there. And I've been really impressed with AI, and I'm really excited about Magi, what you're doing with that. Where do you see AI going from here? Do you have any predictions on what you think might happen?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to say because the technology is moving really fast, and there's also a lot of opposing forces trying to slow down the progress. I think for good reasons, but also for bad reasons. And so it's really hard to say where it's going to go from here. I do know that our everyday lives are going to be more and more integrated with AI. I mean, it's just the natural progression. I liken this paradigm shift of AI to when Google and the internet became a thing. Before the internet, everything was very tangible, very localized, very small and contained in your local area, right? But when the internet came along, it completely opened the door to seeing new things, learning new things, meeting new people, experiencing a much bigger world than we could tangibly or reasonably fathom at that point, right? Everything was so localized. And then Google came along, and this behavioral change that Google caused in a lot of us. Like, think about before you had Google, everything was like, I got to go find an encyclopedia to learn about something, right? I had to go to the local library and look up a book for information I need. I had to open up the yellow pages to find a business that I was looking for, right? When Google came along and said, no, you can just type whatever you need into a little search bar and it will help you find all the things you're looking for. That took a lot of behavioral change, and it didn't happen overnight. We sort of had to realize a little by little, step by step over time, how to use this new thing in our daily lives. And it took a while for people to stop needing yellow pages, and it took a while for people to stop buying encyclopedias. It took a while for that behavioral change, that cultural shift to happen. And I think it's the same with AI. We see a lot of these prompt engineers popping up, and people who don't know how to talk to the AI, so they're looking to these prompt engineers. I don't think that'll exist. If there's one prediction that I'll make, I don't think prompt engineers will be a thing in the next 5 years. And the reason for that is because these AI models are designed to be natural language processors. They're meant to be able to talk to you, interface with you. You're meant to be able to talk to them and type to them in a way that you talk to a normal human being. Can you imagine going to a class where somebody is trying to teach you how to talk to another person? how to talk to an assistant, right? That doesn't exist. Can you imagine going to buying a PDF filled with 1,000 Google searches you can make, right? That is not really makes sense, but it's needed at the moment, right? We need to learn. And I think if we would have had things like 50 Google searches you can make today, back when Google first came around, that would have made a lot of sense and people would have benefited from it. It might have helped our learning curve a little bit faster, and our behavioral adoption to happen a little bit faster. So now we have these prompt booklets and prompt courses and prompt engineers, and I think that will accelerate the rate at which we adopt this new technology into our behavioral patterns. But I think 5 years from now, the idea of a prompt engineer will kind of be gone. It won't exist anymore, because we'll have figured out that we can just tell it what we want, and we'll be able to understand what that means on a day-to-day basis in our daily tasks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the simple fact that AI, you're talking about 5 years from now. I mean, there's been over the past just 6 months so much transformation that's happened with AI that I can see that as technology continues to advance and whatnot, it's going to continue to develop and grow. It's going to be fascinating to see. Again, I love technology. I'm not always the best at it, but I love technology, and I'm just blown away. Again, the simple fact that me, a non-creative guy, can just type in something and there's an image that gets produced, and I'm like, that's awesome. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Where would someone connect with you if someone wanted to learn more about Magi? How could they connect with you?
Head straight to the website. It's magi.co, magai.co. and you can find all the information there. I'm easy to find online. Just Google me, Dustin Stout. I pretty much own the search results for that.
Do you have a favorite social platform?
I am a big fan of Twitter/X. Always have been. So I'm on there most of the time. You'll also catch me on Instagram or LinkedIn once in a blue moon. Facebook, I tend to be a little more private on. Only people that I know in real life or have met and conversed with. Twitter and Instagram are the easiest ways, and I'm at Dustin W. Stout on all the social things. So just look for Dustin W. Stout. You'll find me.
Give me a quick take on Threads. What's been your experience on Threads so far?
I love the implementation. I love what they've done with it. I love the design. I love the functionality. I love how it looks and feels and works. I don't love how dead it is there. And finding content that you actually want to consume. At the beginning, I was seeing a lot of stuff that just I wanted nothing to do with, that did not interest me at all, or was like offensive. And so I quickly kind of left the platform, but I check into it every few days or so just to see if there's anything interesting. But I think it has a lot of potential. I kind of called it out of the gate when people were super excited. Oh my gosh, they got to 100 million users the next. Well, of course they did. Facebook is its parent company, and Facebook just pushed it on all its 3 billion users. Of course they're going to have a ton of users, but nobody's going to use it because Facebook users are very different than Twitter users. And as much as a lot of people are mad at Elon Musk and Twitter, like, they're not going to change their behavior patterns for long. I think a lot of people are going to come back to X/Twitter, and Threads is already, on its last leg from an activity standpoint. Now it could change, could absolutely shift. We've seen this happen before, but like I said, I like what they've done. I think it's cool. It's interesting. I just don't see the activity there. The adoption is just not there.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. I go on there once a day. I'll post something or just to post something. But again, anytime I try to find something or connect with someone, I'm just not seeing it. And the people that Meta's trying to get me to connect with, I don't want anything with, and so it's just like Twitter's my bag. I love it, and I'll continue to use it, even though people are upset with Elon Musk pretty much every single day. So
me too. I found a great community of people on there who were still active and engaging and creating interesting things and having conversations, and that hasn't changed at all for me. The crowds that I sort of go in, the startup founders, the technology people, the AI people. So like, it's the same Twitter for me. Nothing's changed, and so I'll continue to use it. As I always have.
I'm right there with you. Well, Dustin, dude, this was awesome. Thanks so much for taking time to spend with me today.
Absolutely. Anytime, Tom.
Okay, so what did you think? Actually, if you're watching this on video on YouTube or on the Facebook group, did you notice anything different between my background when we were recording this episode? Well, the funny thing about this, I just have to share this with you guys, is that during the middle of our recording with Dustin, the power went out at my church building. I was recording at a church. Usually I record at home. I decided to record at church today, and literally the power went out at the whole church. It wasn't just like in one room or this room. It was the entire building and the entire street. It was so stinking bizarre. But I had to go home, and Dustin was just kind enough to continue the conversation with me. But I'm glad he did, because Magi is a really cool tool, and I can't wait to try it out. I'm going to try it out. The question is, are you going to try out? And what other questions do you have about Magi? Definitely put it in the comment section below, or hit Dustin and I both up on Twitter. I'm including all his links in the show notes, so click on that link. Let's talk to him on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter at TA Pounder. I would love to continue this conversation with you, because AI is changing, it's evolving, and it's going to be a great tool for your church and your ministry. So check out Magi today and see what happens. All right, heroes. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, go and subscribe to it. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's on all the platforms. Just go and subscribe to it. I got all the links in the show notes. Subscribe to it so you can get these every time they come out. Well, thanks for joining me today. As always, have a great rest of your day. And until next time, have a great one.